Welcome back to the Power Hour, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 26th of October, 2009. Whoa, what a world we live in. Can it get more crazy? Yes, absolutely, and that's why you need to be prepared. Well, part of our preparation comes from talking to Bob Chapman every other week because we get to find out from him where are we headed. And I don't think anybody sees us headed to a rosy future financially, but we thank him for joining us. He is the executive editor of the International Forecaster newsletter, theinternationalforecaster.com. You can go to the website, click on it from the Power Hour guest section, and you can also get a copy of his newsletter, a free copy of it, gratis copy of it for the first time to check it out, see if you like it. Complimentary copy by calling 877-479-8178, 817-479-8178. Bob Chapman, thank you so much for joining us today on the Power Hour. We made it over 10,000, so it's looking pretty good, isn't it?
Well, I don't know that I agree with that, and thank you for having me on again. And it's been 2 hours since I've taken my Strauss Heart Drops.
Glad you mentioned that.
I have been taking beta prostate for 16 years, and everything functions perfectly, and I'm 74 years old.
Well, that is a testimony.
And that is the truth. Raj has been a subscriber for 17 years, and so I can attest that they work. I am living proof. Anyway, let's get on to the stock market.
But it's important that people get those things that are important for them in advance, because we may very well, with this national Heine flu emergency, national pandemic panic that they're trying to create, we may not be able to get the things that we want.
Boy, you're absolutely correct. And the situation, whether the stock market's at 10,000 or not, doesn't make any difference. Every single day it continues to deteriorate financially and economically. The revenues to federal and state governments are falling. The states have nowhere to go. They're going to have to start cutting services. Eventually, health care, schools, they'll be shut down. This is where we're headed. And the same thing's going to happen with the availability of mineral supplements, all kinds of things in that category, herbs. They're just not going to be able to. Who knows whether the Postal Service will even be working.
If enough people get sick.
It's not tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, but it is going to happen, and you've got to be prepared.
Mm-hmm. Well, if enough people get sick from the swine flu shots, which is what I'm afraid is going to happen, then it is going to cripple this country.
Well, I agree.
Well, let's talk about the bank failures over the weekend. 6 of them. It's just, it's been sort of 1 and 2 a weekend, and now there's 6. That's pretty scary, isn't it? Or is that indicative of anything to you?
Well, it certainly is. Our country's in trouble. It looks like we're headed for perhaps 115 or 25 or 150 for the year. But next year, I'm looking for 500 to 1,000. I was just writing about it this morning, and that's easily doable. What's happening here is banks have been holding off of their books their problem loans. And after the first of the year, under the FASB as well as the Bank for International Settlements, they have decreed, so to speak, because the banks are all members, they have decreed that they're going to have to bring onto their balance sheet all of this toxic waste, the losers that they've got, and at the same time they're going to have to mark their portfolios to the market and not to model. And marking to model is when you don't really know exactly what the value is because something hasn't sold that was similar for some time. And so what happens is that you can market any way you want. So companies and banks, what they're doing is they're taking, let's say, a collateralized debt obligation, which is a bond, which has residential mortgages inside of it. It might be worth 10 cents on the dollar, and they're marking it in at 80 cents. That's going to stop. And so that's where we're headed next week here. The bank earnings are going to absolutely collapse, and there's going to be a lot of banks absorbed, which will never become bankrupt. We're looking over the next 3 to 4 years of losing between 32 and 4,200 of 8,400 banks in the United States. And incidentally, Europe is not going to do any better. And that's because these banks are interconnected worldwide. It's going to affect the Chinese, the Japanese, Brazil, you name it, it's going to affect them. And so nobody's going to get out of this scot-free. And that's why I keep on telling people to keep an absolute minimum of money in banks, no CDs. For those of you with cash value life insurance policies and annuities, you want out of them, get your money out of them, and gold and silver-related assets. The only exception, if you have a mutual company that you've written your insurance with, they have to go into bonds, and bonds will not fare as badly as the stock market will, because I believe the stock market's headed right straight back down again to where it was 7 months ago at 6,600, and I think that's not the bottom.
Pretty frightening stuff for people that do have some assets in the bank. You know, it's kind of like the Bernie Madoff thing is going to happen to everybody all at once. And there's going to be a lot of people found dead in the bottom of swimming pools, just like happened in one of his associates recently. But the people, though, that have the ears to hear, that are doing what you're saying, are getting a little bit, I think, somewhat prepared, but it's the people around us that are not going to be prepared that are going to be threatening us, and I'm concerned about that also, because imagine the average person has no idea what's going on around them. I mean, they're hearing that, just like on the Heine flu situation, the pandemic, they're saying that, well, it's going to open up some more avenues for funding for them. They don't understand that opens up more avenues means quarantine. It means closing borders. It means, so much happening around them. The average person is not going to understand when their bank fails. They're not going to have any idea that it could have happened to them, and they're not going to be prepared.
Well, that's why you need 2 years' supply, if possible, of not only food, dehydrated and freeze-dried, but all those vitamins, minerals, herbs, hormones, herbs, all of the things that you need in that category. I mean, you see right now, Homeland Security is taking all the ammunition. You can't even get any. I mean, people can't even get ammunition in Canada to go hunting. I saw an article in the Vancouver newspaper that somebody wanted to go elk hunting and couldn't find any shells to shoot an elk with. And, the point here is you've got to be prepared. You've got to have $5,000 if you can afford it in small bills and you're safe at home in case the bank shut down. You have to have gold and silver coins, absolute must. And if you don't have the money to do that, start with the food and the vitamins so that you can at least stay healthy.
And I think, though our listeners hear this over and over again, perhaps they've heard it so many times they don't really realize that now is the time. I think our back is against the wall right now, and it is absolutely, without a doubt, the time to prepare. Now I think that not only the 6 banks that just went under, and we named those 6 banks earlier, but the idea, though, that Capmark cratered. Talk to us about the meaning of Capmark filing for bankruptcy.
Well, I haven't gone into the details of each one of them. All I did was list them in Saturday's issue, and I have had my internet down over the weekend. In fact, it just went back up again. And so, Cap and Trade or Capmark?
Capmark, former GMAC, Commercial Lending Corporation. That
see, I wasn't even aware of that. I've fallen a little bit behind the news here.
Well, that's pretty serious.
So
though.
GMAC, Capmark went under?
Yes, they're declaring bankruptcy.
Well, I wonder how GM is going to finance their cars now.
Yeah. I don't know. And I don't know that, go ahead. U.S. taxpayers. That's how. Josh just said the U.S. taxpayers.
Well, every time they do this, they increase the possibility of inflation. Now, yes, we have a deflationary undertow. There's absolutely no question. But the creation of money and credit in order to keep the system going is been readily available by the Federal Reserve. And it continues to be more than what is needed. And they have to do it that way in order to keep the system going. They really shouldn't keep the system going. They should have killed it 2 years ago, and they should have purged the system and got it over with. But the bankers don't want to get caught because they've done this deliberately, and if they get caught, they're liable to end up in jail, and maybe they'll get hung. And so that's why we're seeing what we're seeing going on.